Players love him. People respond to him.
Really?
I want to follow him.
Really?
Okay?
Why?
Yeah. I love the way he is, the way he conducts himself. He's amazing in the community. I think I was good with high school kids. I think I was philanthropic, okay? Giving back. It's impressive what he does in the community. It's beautiful how he handles himself. I absolutely want to see him play. I had a certain way of wanting to lead our team, okay? And when you're the guy, you could do things as a leader, okay? If you're not the guy, it's harder sometimes to yell at you, to correct you, to coach you up, to take you out with you and then mandate how you're going to run routes or what I'd like to see you do versus blitz zero, because I'm going to hang in there a little longer and I get you to do that and believe in that. He could do that. Guys want to run play for him, and I want to see that, and I think we should embrace that as a team.
There is one part of this Browns quarterback battle that does not show up on a practice stat sheet, does not show up in a completion percentage, and cannot be manufactured by a coaching staff. Either players believe in a quarterback or they do not. And Bernie Kosar just put his finger on exactly why Shedeur Sanders keeps becoming harder and harder for Cleveland to treat like just another young quarterback fighting for reps. Kosar is not looking at Shedeur Sanders and only asking whether the ball came out perfectly on one play or whether every read was flawless. He is looking at something much bigger. He is looking at the way people respond to him, the way teammates seem to gravitate toward him, the confidence he carries into a room, the way he represents himself away from football, and most importantly, whether the players around him actually want to follow him when things get difficult. That matters because quarterback is different from almost every other position on the field. You can have a talented receiver who keeps to himself.
I heard that he was staying late after every session, throwing to receivers. Love that. I absolutely love that. I love the bravado too. I love the fact that he says, I want to be that guy. I love that because we've had a lot of quarterbacks here that haven't fully embraced that. We are a city looking for a hero with a cape that plays quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. That's what we desperately have been looking for, that forever. I love the fact that he embraces that and says, yeah, I want to be that guy.
You can have a great defensive lineman who simply handles his own assignment, but the quarterback has to control 10 other players every single snap. He has to walk into the huddle after a bad series and make everybody believe the next drive can still be different. He has to correct mistakes. He has to demand more from receivers. He has to tell guys what he expects when pressure is coming. And he has to do all of that without losing the respect of the people standing beside him. That kind of authority cannot simply be handed to somebody because his name sits first on a depth chart. And that is what makes Kosar's view of Shedeur Sanders so interesting. The Browns can teach footwork. They can clean up pocket movement. They can work on timing, protections, progressions, and every technical detail that comes with playing quarterback in the NFL. Those are coachable things. But getting grown men in an NFL locker room to genuinely respond to you is different. Players can tell very quickly when somebody is forcing leadership. They know when somebody is trying too hard to sound like the guy. They know when confidence is real and when it is being performed for cameras.
I think for the main thing is they both great dudes. I like Shedeur. I like the swag he brings, the confidence he plays with, you know what I'm saying? Deshaun's a little bit more quieter, but he's still a baller. You know, we can't erase what he's done in the past in this league either. So everybody always mention them two, but you know, you got other quarterbacks on the roster too. You know, you got Dylan Gabriel still. He's coming into his second year.
Shedeur appears to have something that cannot be installed during a quarterback meeting: presence. And Kosar clearly believes that matters. Think about how different that is from the way Shedeur is sometimes discussed. So much of the conversation around him becomes microscopic. One bad rep gets examined. One decision becomes a debate. One practice sequence gets turned into evidence for some massive conclusion about whether he is ready. But while everyone is staring at individual plays, a Browns legend is paying attention to the human side of the position. Who are these players willing to listen to? Who can challenge a receiver without creating resentment? Who can demand a different route against pressure and have that receiver actually trust what he sees? Who can make an offense feel like 11 players are working toward the same thing? Those questions matter just as much as the highlight throws. And this is where the Shedeur Sanders conversation starts getting uncomfortable for anyone who wants to reduce him to a developmental story. Because if teammates are already responding to him before he has even fully established himself, imagine what happens if the football side continues catching up. That is the part Cleveland cannot ignore. Leadership becomes much easier when a quarterback has earned the right to command the room. Once teammates truly believe he gives them a better chance to win, everything changes. A receiver is more willing to accept correction. An offensive lineman trusts the quarterback to recognize pressure. The huddle gets tighter after a mistake instead of quieter. And suddenly that quarterback is not simply participating in the offense anymore, he is driving it. Kosar understands that better than most people watching from the outside.
I'm truly excited for this year, that the attitude about everybody in the building, like, we like the hard coach and we like all that stuff because we know it's coming from a place of wanting us to be great, wanting us to, everybody's goal is aligned here. That's why we don't have the petty quarterback battles internally of that. That's not up to us. It's up to, whoever the coach is thinking, whoever put their best foot forward. Do you know what I love now? I love being in rhythm and having timing. So what I mean by rhythm and timing is, if it's a 5-step drop, if it's a quick 5, if it's a regular 5, if it's gonna be a longer development play, if it's gonna be play action 7, I like everything in rhythm and that type of stuff, because it feels so, it's just a different feeling, and you can understand that feeling. You know how it feels whenever your eyes are in the right place, your feet are in the right place. Like, it just feels so easy. But that's just a chase that we're chasing every day, is to find that.
He knows Cleveland. He knows what quarterback pressure feels like in that city, and he understands that playing the position involves much more than making impressive throws during a controlled practice. When a former Browns quarterback starts focusing on the way teammates react to Shedeur Sanders, that deserves attention, because nobody is saying leadership alone should decide a starting job. Shedeur still has to execute. He still has to make the right decisions. He still has to protect the football, handle pressure, and prove that his game translates when defenses are attacking him for real. Every quarterback does. But if the football continues improving while the leadership is already there, then Cleveland could be dealing with something far more serious than a normal quarterback competition. They could be watching a young quarterback gradually become the emotional center of the offense before anybody officially gives him that title.
It was amazing to me watching Cam and Shedeur in college, how they already have that confidence and ability, pocket presence to hang this close to a defensive tackle, Tyvis, and not be affected, keep your feet calm, and execute a throw. So I loved watching that coming in. I was super surprised he fell that far like he did. So I'm like just any fan, I'm looking forward to seeing him play, truthfully.
And once players genuinely start believing in somebody, that is one battle no depth chart can completely control. The biggest mistake people can make with Shedeur Sanders right now is judging everything through one narrow lens. One throw, one rep, one practice period, one mistake, one good drive, one bad decision. That is how quarterback battles get turned into daily scorecards, but that is not always how a real starting quarterback emerges. Sometimes the more important story is happening underneath all of that. And Shedeur may be building something that carries far more weight than a few clean practice numbers. He is earning belief. That does not mean every teammate is standing around declaring him the answer. That would be an exaggeration. But what Bernie Kosar is noticing goes beyond whether Shedeur completed a certain percentage of passes on one afternoon. He is paying attention to how people react to him, how naturally he carries himself, and whether players seem comfortable responding to his personality and leadership. That is a huge part of quarterback development that gets ignored when everyone becomes obsessed with practice statistics. A young quarterback can throw the prettiest ball in camp and still struggle to command an NFL huddle. He can know the playbook and still fail to make teammates trust him. He can say all the right things during press conferences and still not have the type of presence that changes the energy around an offense. That is why this matters so much. Shedeur Sanders does not appear to be fighting only to prove that he can make NFL throws.
He possesses a unique ability to throw that damn football. He can spin it, Chris. You know this.
I know.
I know this. When they give it to Shedeur,
yeah, watch
look
out,
Daddy.
Yeah,
look out, Daddy.
Yeah.
Look out, Daddy. That boy. Hey, I'm telling you, grow. I'm telling you, he is no nonsense, and he gets the job done, baby.
he definitely shows up when the lights are on. That's the thing we love about Shedeur, is he does not seem
No
to
doubt.
There's
back
no
down from
stage
that.
too big for him.
Yeah.
The stage at his house was the biggest that he ever stood on.
He is also showing signs that people around him are willing to listen when he speaks. And that is where the entire conversation starts to shift. Because NFL quarterbacking is not just about being accurate when everything is clean. It is about what happens when the offense gets punched in the mouth. What happens after a sack? What happens after a receiver runs the wrong route? What happens when protection breaks down, the defense brings pressure, and everybody in the huddle needs somebody to settle things down before the next snap? That is when leadership stops being a nice talking point and becomes part of winning football. Shedeur has always played with visible confidence. Sometimes that confidence has made him one of the most discussed young quarterbacks around the league. Some people love it. Some people question it. But inside a football team, confidence means something different. If teammates believe that confidence is backed by preparation, toughness, and accountability, then it can become contagious. That is what Cleveland has to evaluate. Not whether Shedeur looks confident for a camera, not whether he knows how to create attention around himself. The real question is whether that confidence works inside the building when nobody is trying to win a headline. Can he walk into a huddle after a mistake and keep everybody locked in? Can he tell a receiver that a route needs to change against a certain coverage and have that receiver trust him? Can he take responsibility when he misses something instead of passing blame? Can he push teammates without losing them? Those are the details that separate a quarterback who simply has ability from a quarterback who can eventually own an offense. And the interesting part is that Shedeur does not have to be perfect yet for those qualities to matter. In fact, that is exactly why they matter so much right now. Cleveland knows there are areas of his game that still need work. Every young quarterback has them. Pocket discipline can improve. Timing can improve. Reads can become faster. Communication with receivers can keep developing.
I see you being one of the first guys out to practice. You're for sure one of the last guys to leave. Not that I'm stalking you, but it's impressive to watch some of the individual drills that you do to get yourself prepared. So it's quite clear the work ethic's beyond impressive in terms of the internal preparation for it. But then the ability to be aware of the surroundings and just your influence so far in the community, out here at camp, and then watching you sign autographs afterwards. Really hats off to you in terms of, your commitment to your craft, to your team, and then to the community. What do you attribute to being able to do that?
Just being a normal human. I don't think anything is hard when it comes to that. You feel like it's just something I internally just feel like doing. So at this point in life, I don't think I would fake anything, because there's no need, there's no reason to. So
well, it's beautiful.
Everything is just genuinely how I am.
You do an amazing job of making young people and people believe that they matter by giving self-confidence and self-esteem. And I see you doing that within the locker room and with your teammates. So for a young rookie, keep it up. You matter.
Yeah. Appreciate it, man.
But leadership is much harder to manufacture. A coaching staff can stand in a meeting room and explain where the ball should go against cover 2. They can run a quarterback through the same footwork drill hundreds of times. They can break down every mistake on film frame by frame. What they cannot do is force teammates to believe in somebody. That comes from the player. And if Shedeur is already beginning to earn that kind of response, then his ceiling inside this Browns offense becomes much more interesting. This is also why the constant obsession with whether he won one practice can miss the bigger picture. Quarterback competitions are not supposed to be decided like boxing rounds where somebody gets a point every time he completes a pass. Coaches are trying to figure out which player gives the entire offense the best chance to function. That includes decision-making, accuracy, command, communication, toughness, and leadership. If one quarterback slightly wins a statistical practice but another is steadily building stronger command around the group, Cleveland has to weigh both sides. And that makes Shedeur difficult to dismiss. He is not simply trying to convince coaches that he belongs on an NFL field. He is building relationships with the people who would actually have to fight beside him every Sunday. Offensive linemen have to trust that he knows where pressure is coming from. Receivers have to believe the football will arrive when they make their break. Running backs have to understand his checks. The entire offense has to feel that when something goes wrong, their quarterback is not going to panic. That is bigger than one impressive deep ball. It is bigger than one ugly interception. It is bigger than one practice report. Because if Shedeur Sanders can combine NFL-level execution with the natural pull that Kosar sees in him, then Cleveland is not just developing a quarterback anymore. They may be developing somebody who can eventually make the entire offense feel like it belongs to him. This is where Bernie Kosar's opinion carries a different kind of weight.
You spent $230 million and 3 first-round picks, and the guy's played 19 games, and he's tore his Achilles tendon twice. Like, this is crazy. Like, you need to know what you have with Shedeur Sanders. Oh, and by the way, Taylon Green and Dylan Gabriel. Like, cut your losses. Move on from Deshaun Watson. He's a skilled, diminished player at this point in time.
It's a waste of time. It's a waste of time for everybody to have him start any meaningful time.
He is not watching Shedeur Sanders like a television analyst trying to win a debate segment. He knows what it means to be the quarterback in Cleveland, what it feels like when an entire offense looks at one player for direction, and how quickly that position becomes about far more than just throwing the football. That is why his focus on leadership matters. Kosar understands that when you become the guy at quarterback, the relationship with your teammates changes. Suddenly, you are not just another player executing an assignment. You are expected to control the operation. You have to recognize what the defense is doing. You have to communicate what you see. You have to demand that receivers get to the right spot. You have to make sure everybody understands what is coming when the defense loads the line and threatens pressure. And the key part is this: teammates have to accept that from you. Anybody can tell somebody else what to do. That does not make him a leader. Real leadership shows up when the players around you believe enough in what you are saying to actually respond to it. That is what Kosar seems to be seeing in Shedeur Sanders. He sees a quarterback with the personality to communicate. A quarterback who does not appear afraid of responsibility. A quarterback who carries himself like he expects people to listen when he speaks. And when you are talking about an NFL offense, that can become incredibly valuable. Think about a real game situation. It is 3rd and long. The defense is showing an all-out pressure look. The receiver might need to adjust his route because the quarterback knows he will not have time to sit in the pocket. Maybe the quarterback needs that receiver to break earlier. Maybe he needs him to understand that the ball could come out immediately. Maybe the original play is about to change completely because of what the defense is showing. That entire situation depends on trust. The quarterback has to trust the receiver. The receiver has to trust the quarterback. And everybody has to believe that the person controlling the offense knows exactly what he is seeing. That is the part of quarterback play fans rarely get to measure. There is no simple statistic for it. There is no box on a practice report that says one quarterback commanded the huddle better than another. But coaches notice it. Players feel it. And former quarterbacks understand exactly how important it becomes once the football games start getting ugly. That is why Kosar's perspective fits Shedeur so well. There has never been much doubt that Shedeur has personality. The question has always been how that personality would translate inside an NFL building. Would veteran players respond to him? Would teammates respect his confidence? Could he go from being a highly discussed young quarterback to somebody who actually commands an NFL offense? Kosar appears to believe those pieces are already beginning to show. And if that continues, it creates a very interesting problem for Cleveland, because the Browns are not only evaluating who knows the playbook, they are not only evaluating who looks comfortable in 7-on-7 work. They have to figure out which quarterback can become the voice of the offense when everything starts moving at full speed. That job gets difficult very quickly. The quarterback has to be willing to correct people. He has to be willing to challenge people. Sometimes he has to tell a receiver that what he just did is not good enough. Sometimes he has to demand a route be run differently. Sometimes he has to stand in the pocket knowing pressure is coming and convince the receiver that if he gives him one extra moment, the ball is going to be there. That is not easy to do if your teammates do not fully believe in you. And this is exactly why Shedeur's ability to connect with people becomes part of the football conversation, not some side story. Leadership is not separate from quarterback play. It is quarterback play. You can draw the perfect offense on a whiteboard. You can install every protection. You can design answers for every blitz, but once the game starts, the quarterback becomes the person who has to bring all of those ideas to life. He becomes the bridge between the coaching staff and the 10 players standing with him on the field. If that quarterback cannot command respect, everything gets harder. If he can, the offense has a chance to become something more. And Kosar clearly sees qualities in Shedeur that could allow him to become that kind of player. That does not automatically make Shedeur the starter. It does not erase the areas where he still has to improve. It does not mean Cleveland should ignore mistakes just because teammates like being around him. But it absolutely means the Browns should take this part of his evaluation seriously, because quarterback competitions are supposed to identify more than the safest player. They are supposed to identify the player who can run the offense, handle the pressure, and bring everybody around him together when the game starts turning against them. Kosar has lived that responsibility. He knows that Cleveland can be a difficult place to play quarterback when things are going wrong. He knows how quickly pressure builds around that position. And he knows how important it is for a quarterback to have teammates who still believe in him when the stadium gets tense and the defense knows exactly what is coming. So when somebody with that experience looks at Shedeur Sanders and sees a player others may want to follow, that is not some meaningless compliment. That is one of the most important evaluations a quarterback can receive. This is where the Browns may eventually run into a problem they cannot solve with a depth chart alone. If Shedeur Sanders keeps improving on the field while also becoming the kind of quarterback teammates naturally respond to, then Cleveland has to start asking a much bigger question. At what point does the locker room factor become too important to ignore? Because quarterback competitions are never just about who throws the cleanest ball in a controlled practice period. They are about who can take control when everything gets messy. And that is where Shedeur's personality could become a serious advantage. A quarterback has to do much more than complete passes. He has to command the huddle, process pressure, communicate adjustments, and keep everybody moving in the same direction. When an offense gets hit with a bad series, somebody has to settle it down. When a receiver misses an adjustment, somebody has to correct it. When the defense starts showing pressure from every angle, somebody has to make sure the entire offense understands what is coming. That person has to be the quarterback, but there is one major catch. Players actually have to believe him. That is why Bernie Kosar's view of Shedeur matters so much. He is drawing attention to something that cannot be measured by simply counting completions. If teammates genuinely respond to Shedeur, that gives him something incredibly valuable before the Browns even make a final decision. It gives him influence, and influence inside an NFL offense can change everything. Imagine a receiver makes a mistake on a route. A quarterback who has not earned respect might correct him, but the message does not always land. Maybe the receiver gets frustrated. Maybe he brushes it off. Maybe communication starts breaking down. Now imagine the same situation with a quarterback the receiver truly believes in. The conversation feels different. The quarterback can tell him exactly what he needs against a certain coverage, and instead of taking it personally, the receiver understands that they are trying to solve the same problem. That trust becomes even more important when the defense is sending pressure, and the quarterback knows he may have to stand in and take a hit just to give his receiver enough time to uncover. That is not created overnight, and it definitely is not created because somebody's name was placed first on a practice sheet. It has to be earned. That is why the Browns have to pay attention to the way the offense responds around Shedeur Sanders. Not because popularity should decide the quarterback competition. It should not. But because leadership, communication, and trust are part of the position, and pretending otherwise would be a mistake. The best quarterbacks do not simply execute an offense. They make the offense feel like it belongs to everybody. When they step into the huddle, there is clarity. When they make an adjustment, players listen. When they make a mistake, they own it. And when the game turns ugly, the rest of the offense does not start looking around wondering who is going to fix it. That is the standard Shedeur is eventually trying to reach. And if he is already showing some of those qualities while still fighting for his place, then his development becomes even more interesting. Because think about the position he is in. He is not walking into a situation where everything has been handed to him. He still has to compete. He still has to prove himself. Every mistake can become a headline. Every practice can become another argument over where he belongs. Every rep gets examined like it could decide his entire future. Yet through all of that, Shedeur still carries himself with visible confidence. That matters. A quarterback who becomes passive because he is afraid of making a mistake is not going to command an offense. A quarterback who starts playing scared because he knows everybody is watching is going to have problems once real pressure arrives. Shedeur does not appear interested in shrinking, and that may be exactly why people respond to him. He gives the impression that he expects the responsibility rather than running from it. There is a difference between being loud and actually having presence, and what Kosar seems to appreciate is that Shedeur's presence feels natural. That can become extremely powerful if the football continues matching it. Because once teammates begin trusting a quarterback, they become more willing to fight through difficult moments with him. A receiver keeps working after an early drop. An offensive lineman stays locked in after allowing pressure. The offense does not collapse because one series went wrong. That is what leadership can do, and Cleveland should want that. The Browns have spent enough time dealing with instability at quarterback. At some point, the organization needs more than somebody capable of executing the call. It needs somebody who can make the offense believe it has direction. That is why this should not become a simple conversation about whether Shedeur is likable. That misses the point completely. The question is whether the qualities making teammates respond to him can translate into actual command on Sundays. If they do, then his case becomes much stronger. Because suddenly Cleveland is not choosing between quarterbacks based only on arm talent or experience. The Browns are choosing which player can best hold an offense together while also making the throws required to win games. And if Shedeur keeps proving he can do both, the entire competition starts changing. At that point, every positive response from teammates matters a little more. Every confident drive matters a little more. Every moment where the offense seems comfortable around him becomes another piece of evidence. The more this conversation develops, the harder it becomes to keep treating Shedeur Sanders like a quarterback who simply is not ready for more. That label sounds clean. It sounds safe. It gives people an easy way to explain why somebody else should stay ahead of him. But once you start looking at everything around Shedeur, that argument becomes a lot more complicated. Because what exactly does "not ready" mean? Does it mean he still has things to clean up? Of course he does. Every young quarterback does. Does it mean he is going to make mistakes when the pocket gets crowded or when a defense disguises coverage? Probably. That is part of development. But if the standard is that a quarterback has to be completely polished before he gets a real opportunity, then almost no young quarterback would ever get on the field. And that is why Bernie Kosar's view matters so much here. Kosar is not describing a player who looks overwhelmed by the responsibility. He is describing somebody who already carries himself like teammates are willing to respond to him. That is a massive difference, because one of the biggest questions around any young quarterback is not just whether he can throw the football. It is whether the moment looks too big for him. With Shedeur, that has never really been the concern. If anything, the opposite is true. He looks comfortable with attention. He looks comfortable with pressure. He looks comfortable being watched. And he looks comfortable having people expect something from him. That does not mean he has mastered the position, but it does mean one of the biggest mental hurdles young quarterbacks often face does not appear to scare him. That should matter to Cleveland. There is a difference between being unfinished and being unprepared. Those two things get mixed together all the time. An unfinished quarterback may still need better timing. He may still drift in the pocket. He may hold the ball a little too long. He may miss a coverage rotation. Those are football corrections. An unprepared quarterback looks lost. He cannot command the huddle. He struggles to process what is happening. Teammates do not know what to expect from him. The offense looks disorganized when he is in control. That is not the picture Kosar is painting with Shedeur Sanders, and that is why the old narrative starts getting weaker. If teammates are responding to him, if he has the confidence to command people around him, and if he continues stacking quality football reps, then the Browns have to separate "he still needs work" from "he cannot handle the job."
Those are not the same thing. Every quarterback needs work. The real question is whether the foundation is there. And with Shedeur, that foundation starts with confidence, communication, and the willingness to lead. That is what makes this situation so interesting. For months, a lot of the conversation around him has focused on what he does not have yet. Not enough experience, not enough polish, not enough time in the system, not enough proof. Fine. But what about what he already has? What about the fact that he does not seem afraid of being the center of attention? What about his ability to connect with teammates? What about the way people around him seem willing to listen? What about the fact that a Browns legend is looking at him and seeing leadership traits that are incredibly difficult to teach? Those things count too. And when you put all of it together, the burden starts shifting. At first, Shedeur had to prove why Cleveland should give him more opportunities. If he keeps developing, Cleveland may eventually have to explain why it should not. That is a completely different conversation. Because the easy argument against playing a young quarterback is usually that the game is moving too fast for him. Maybe he needs more time. Maybe he needs more reps. Maybe the veterans around him are not ready to trust him. But if the locker room factor is already moving in the other direction, then one of those excuses starts disappearing. If players believe in him, the Browns do not have to manufacture confidence around him. They do not have to convince the offense to buy in. They only have to figure out whether his play is good enough to justify the opportunity. And that is exactly where this competition gets serious. Because once the gap on the field gets smaller, everything else starts mattering more. Leadership matters more, command matters more, energy matters more. The ability to recover from mistakes matters more. And Shedeur may have an advantage in some of those areas that cannot be seen by simply comparing two practice stat lines. That does not mean Cleveland should hand him anything. He should have to earn every snap. But earning something also means recognizing when a player has actually done enough to deserve a bigger test. You cannot keep asking a quarterback to prove himself and then move the finish line every time he does something positive. At some point, evaluation has to turn into opportunity, and that is where Kosar's message becomes uncomfortable for anyone still completely locked into the "not ready" narrative. Because if a young quarterback is already showing leadership, already getting positive responses from teammates, already carrying himself with confidence, and continuing to improve as a passer, what exactly are you waiting to see? Perfection? That is never coming, not from Shedeur, not from any quarterback. The better question is whether he gives the Browns something they can build around. And if Cleveland believes the answer could be yes, then the next step cannot always be another delay. Eventually, they have to see what happens when the offense is truly placed in his hands. Because Shedeur Sanders does not need everybody to agree that he is finished developing. And this is where the entire Shedeur Sanders conversation comes back to one simple question. How long can Cleveland keep treating this like a normal quarterback competition if one player keeps giving them more and more reasons to believe in him? Because this is no longer just about one good practice, one clean throw, or one impressive moment. It is about the full picture. Shedeur is still developing, still learning, still correcting things, but at the same time, he is showing the kind of confidence, command, and presence that can become extremely valuable at quarterback, and Bernie Kosar clearly sees that. That is what makes this bigger than another piece of praise. Kosar is looking at the part of quarterback play that is very difficult to fake. Teammates either respond to you or they do not. Players either trust your voice or they do not. And when pressure comes, the offense either believes the quarterback can pull everybody together or the whole thing starts falling apart. Shedeur appears to have a real chance to become that kind of leader.
Now Cleveland has to find out how far it can go. They cannot make the decision because people like Shedeur. They cannot make it because fans are excited. And they cannot make it because one former Browns quarterback sees something special in him. The football still has to decide it. But leadership is part of football. Command is part of football. The ability to get 10 other players moving in the same direction is part of football. And if Shedeur continues showing those qualities while his actual quarterback play keeps improving, then the Browns are going to reach a point where giving him more responsibility stops feeling like a gamble and starts feeling like the obvious next step. That is what makes these next opportunities so important. Every rep becomes another chance to see whether the leadership Kosar is talking about can translate when the pressure rises. Can Shedeur control the offense when things go wrong? Can he respond after a mistake? Can he make the adjustment against pressure? Can he demand something from a receiver and then deliver the football exactly where it needs to go? If he can do those things consistently, then this discussion changes fast. Because Cleveland is not looking for a quarterback who simply survives the job. They are looking for somebody who can own it, somebody the offense believes in, somebody who can walk into the huddle when the game is slipping away and make everybody feel like there is still a way out. That is the kind of quarterback Bernie Kosar seems to believe Shedeur can become. Now the Browns have to decide whether they are willing to fully test it. So I want to hear from you. Do you think Bernie Kosar is seeing something real here? Do you believe Shedeur Sanders already has the leadership to eventually take control of this Browns offense? Or do you still need to see much more before you are ready to go that far? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you want more Browns quarterback updates, Shedeur Sanders breakdowns, and every major twist in this competition, make sure you subscribe and stay with us, because this battle is getting harder to ignore every single day.